Why is it that some people manage to turn every idea they have into gold, while others remain trapped in an endless cycle of unfinished projects and dreams that fade away? What if the problem isn't a lack of talent, discipline, or opportunities, but something much deeper and hidden? Let me guess. You've tried everything: morning routines, time blocking, productivity courses, book after book on entrepreneurial mindset. You've filled Pinterest with colorful vision boards and repeated, "I create success," in front of the mirror. But there's always something that goes wrong, right? The project that seemed perfect gets stuck. The inspiration that burned inside dies out. And you find yourself scrolling Instagram again, watching others do what you dream of doing, wondering what's wrong with you. The truth is that millions of creatives are secretly exhausted from fighting against an invisible force that sabotages their every effort. And that force doesn't come from outside. It comes from within, from the darkest place of the psyche that Carl Jung called the shadow. Carl Jung understood something that the self-help industry continues to ignore. This isn't another video on how to unlock your creative potential with mindset techniques. It's about something more radical: how the repressed aspects of your personality are literally preventing your ideas from seeing the light, and how the integration of these disowned parts can become the most powerful fuel for your authentic expression. But before we get to that, I need to show you something that will completely change how you look at your creative blocks: the unconscious that directs your creativity. Carl Jung wasn't just interested in the individual psyche. He was fascinated by how the collective unconscious influenced human creativity. And he had a controversial theory: the privilege of a lifetime is being who you really are. But what happens when you don't know who you really are because you've buried essential parts of yourself? Here's the problem. Most of us try to create from the ideal self, that perfect, disciplined, always inspired version we think we should be. But what feeds that creativity from underground? Deep fears of judgment, terror of failure, shame about our most authentic desires, repressed anger toward those who succeed. While the conscious mind says, "I want to create something meaningful," the unconscious whispers, "But what will people think? What if I'm not good enough? What if I succeed and then people discover I'm an imposter?" That inner battle is the real creativity killer. Not lack of time, not lack of resources. It's the lack of psychic integrity. And Jung didn't want you to ignore these parts. He wanted you to embrace them, because he believed that authentic creation is born from the encounter with the totality of who you are, not from the performance of who you think you should be. The parts of you that sabotage your genius. Let's talk about the parts of you that don't show up in your motivational posts. The parts that hide when you tell friends about your projects. The parts that activate every time you're about to make the big leap. Carl Jung described the shadow as everything we've disowned about ourselves, not because it was evil, but because it didn't fit the image we wanted to project. The paradox? In that shadow often lies our true creative strength, our authentic voice, our primordial fire. Authentic creativity doesn't come from perfection. It comes from integration. Let me explain why. Maybe you think your creative block is practical. You don't have enough skills, connections, or capital. But for most people, the real block is identity-based. It's deeper than mindset. It's rooted in the very structure of who we believe we are. Maybe as a child you learned that being too creative meant being different, strange, unacceptable. That expressing your wildest ideas would make you a target. That to be loved you had to be reasonable, practical, normal. These beliefs don't disappear when you say, "I am a successful creator," 20 times a day. In fact, forcing positive affirmations over unresolved trauma is like putting a Band-Aid on an infected wound. It seems to work until everything comes to the surface. Jung didn't believe in skipping steps. He believed in integration, in brutal honesty with your fears, envies, shames, repressed desires. Not to judge them, but to understand them. Because what you repress doesn't disappear. It seeps through. and it influences every creative decision from the shadows. When you truly meet your shadow, and I mean sit with it, listen to it, accept it, something transforms. You stop fighting against parts of yourself. And when that inner civil war ends, your energy is freed. You become coherent, and coherence is magnetic. The three faces of the creative shadow. Now you might be thinking, okay, I get it. My shadow is part of the picture. But what exactly is in there? And how is it preventing me from creating freely? Let's break this down with Jung's lens. There are three main types of shadow that most people carry regarding creativity and expression. You won't find them on your mood boards. These are the hidden programs that sabotage your reality while you work your creative mantras to exhaustion. Number 1, the imposter shadow. This is rooted in existential shame. Maybe you grew up feeling too sensitive or too intense. Somewhere along the way you learned that your deepest thoughts and feelings were excessive, inappropriate, to be hidden. This shadow whispers, who do you think you are to have something to say? When it rules, no matter how much talent you have, there's an invisible ceiling. You unconsciously repel opportunities, minimize your achievements, hide behind perfectionism because it's not good enough yet. Number 2, the competitor shadow. This is more insidious. It hides behind supportiveness and surface-level admiration. You scroll through other creative social media and say, how talented. But inside a part of you thinks, why them and not me? They probably had more luck/connections/privileges. This creates devastating energetic conflict. You can't become what you secretly envy or despise. And this shadow often inherits family or cultural patterns that equated creative success with selfishness, superficiality, selling your soul. Number 3, the paralyzed visionary shadow. This is rooted in terror of your own power. It says, if I really express who I am, if I share what I see, it will change everything. What if I'm not ready? What if people pull away? What if success isolates me? This shadow convinces you that your full creative potential is dangerous. That being completely yourself will bring chaos, responsibilities, pressures you don't know how to handle. So you unconsciously sabotage yourself every time you're about to break through. How do you begin to dissolve these shadows? Not by pretending they don't exist, by acknowledging them, talking to them, sitting with them like you would with a frightened child. Not to fix them, but to understand them. Awareness alone creates space. From that space, new aligned choices and actions become possible. The Jungian method, dialoguing with your creativity. Let's completely flip the concept of creative unblocking. What if creativity wasn't something you have or don't have, but something you're in relationship with? A living, breathing entity that mirrors back the nature of your connection, your respect, your consistency, your truth. Not just a talent to exploit, but an energy you're either connected to or disconnected from, based on how you relate to it. And this is where Jungian wisdom becomes gold. Because Carl Jung taught that the psyche isn't one-dimensional. It's full of archetypes, symbolic personalities within us, each with their own needs, voices, and truths. The same applies to the energies we engage with outside ourselves, and creativity is one of them. So, if creativity were a person, how would it feel being around you? Do you only call when you have a deadline? Do you avoid its gaze when things get messy? Do you blame it for your stress? Or try to control it out of fear? No healthy relationship thrives like that. Here's a tool. Something deceptively simple, but truly transformative if you treat it as a practice, not a gimmick. Build an actual relationship with your creativity as if it were a sacred partner. Sit down once a week, light a candle, play music, and talk to your creativity as if you're talking to a human being. Relational check-in questions. How have I been treating you lately? Do you feel respected by me or exploited? What do you feel most unsafe with me? Are there moments when you wanted to come closer, but I pushed you away? Shadow-revealing questions. What parts of me do you think are afraid of you? What stories from my past do I project onto you? When I was young, what did I learn about you from my family or society? Is there a part of me that envies you or fears being corrupted by you? Gratitude and trust-building questions. What have you already done for me that I've taken for granted? What would it look like if we moved forward in mutual trust? How can I honor you in the way I create, share, or develop my work? What would love feel like in our relationship? Not control, not fear, but real love. Vision-expanding questions. What kind of life do you want to help me create? If we work together, what kind of impact could we have? Who am I becoming in our relationship? What do you want to express through me that I'm not yet allowing? These questions aren't just introspective, they're alchemical. When asked with honesty and openness, they begin to repattern your internal dialogue, aligning you with a healthier, more empowered creative story. This might sound bizarre at first, but Jung believed the unconscious speaks in symbols, not logic. By personifying creativity, you tap into that symbolic language. You make the unconscious conscious, and that's where real change happens. Because creativity, like any sacred archetype, doesn't respond to force, but to relationship. When you treat creativity like a partner, not as a means to an end, you build trust, and trust brings flow. You no longer chase it, you dance with it, you co-create with it. And slowly, creativity becomes not a source of performance anxiety, but a collaborator in your soul's deepest expression. It doesn't mean you never feel fear again. But now, when fear shows up, you don't exile it. You bring into the conversation. You say, I hear you, but we're safe now, I've got this. That's the Jungian path to wholeness. It's not about suppressing parts of you. It's about welcoming all of you to the table. So the parts of you that once pushed away authentic expression now help you sustain it with love. If this spoke to something deep inside you, if you're ready to stop chasing creativity and start relating to it like a living, loving presence in your life, then this is your invitation. And if this video shifted your perspective, even a little, share it with someone who's tired of creating through masks. Let's build a world where art begins with truth, not pretending. We're not just here to be productive. We're here to become whole.